Thank you. We got there. Hi all, and thank you for the opportunity. Very pleased to be here and share with you today the ACDC story and why we are worth a close look with the opportunity for a re-rate. I hope you can all agree that the name is a very memorable one, and I hope you find the story as well. The disclaimer, the essential disclaimer. I guess I'm an engineer, not a geologist, so there will be no outlandish statements in this one. The strategy. So the ACDC strategy essentially is completely connected to the energy transition, supplying materials for the efficient low carbon capture and storage of energy. We aren't the first ones trying to achieve this, of course, but there's a massive opportunity out there for Australia. Our aim is to be a supplier of the separated rare earth elements within Australia, utilising innovative technology and using the mineral monazite as the byproduct from our mineral sand mine. The time for Australia selling low value materials offshore is gone, and we're really excited to be playing a part in this. So why ACDC? So as I mentioned, we have that exposure to the energy transition, and then there's the demand for the critical minerals. Government are demanding it, the public are demanding it, and to bring it onshore and to do that full value add steps all the way through from mine to magnet. And we know that the markets are growing. You know, there's plenty of information out there on the growth to 2030, the doubling of requirements for these rare earths, the number of projects that need to come online, and so that's the great space to be in. Since listing in January of 23, so we're only a new company, 6 months old. We recently went through our IPO over Christmas, raised 8 million, and since then we've been on the ground hitting our milestones. So we've just completed a 13,000 or 12,500 metre program across our projects. Assays have just started coming back in. We released some, I think 2 weeks ago, our first lot at Goshen Central. Again, last week we finally got some mineralogy coming through, and there've been exceptional numbers that we've seen so far. And so internally we're very excited about what we're seeing, and I guess that's now that we've completed that 3 months worth of drilling, there should be about another 3 months worth of data that'll come in through from the labs, and we look forward to be able to share that with our shareholders. As I mentioned, also the JORC resource, so all the drilling that we're going right now is all working towards that maiden JORC resource. And so we're on target for that for the next quarter. With all the results coming in now, we've already engaged our geology consultant, and they're working through all that right now. And I guess also the other ACDC component is our differentiator, which is the rare earth processing component. So we're not only going to mine the mineral sands and the monazite, and then we'll take that monazite to another plant, which will then be the rare earth carbonate. And that's the first step towards that magnet production. And that's really our key differentiator. So the board of management team. So we've assembled a strong team of experience in geology, corporate development, finance, engineering. And I think today we have here Mark and Ivan also here today, so come and hit us up at booth number 20, I think, for if you want to have another chat. Capital structure. So it's tightly held, well funded. We're sitting at around a cash backing at the moment, so it makes my job easier to demonstrate why the price is going to go up. As I mentioned before, we have a strong cash position, and if you take note of the graph at the bottom there, where we're comparing to our peers, the market cap, so that's the upside. Obviously the two sort of bigger ones there, VHM and Astron, they're in the same region as us, same style of projects, they're just further along that development pathline, and so that's where we're going, and so that's the real upside for us. And so really this is the key slide, which really in a nutshell, what is ACDC all about? So the first box there that represents the heavy mineral sand operation. So at the moment we have tenements or projects in Western Victoria, the Murray Basin, which is the historic inland sea, and so where a lot of these minerals are being deposited. And so this represents, we would have a mineral sand plant located there, and that would produce 3 concentrates. So we would produce a heavy mineral concentrate, which is being mined extensively in that region and also in Australia and across the world, and so there's well-established markets there, and that's the zircons, rutols, titanias, which are used extensively now, and markets show good forecasts for them as well. The major sort of difference now from where historically these tenements were looked at is the monazite component. So the monazite contains the rare earths. And so you can see that little arrow there coming off. That's the main concentrate that would either be, you can export that back over to other markets where they would do that separation. But the main sort of story for ACDC is then to put it into our other plant. And so we have an exclusive agreement with Medallion Resources, a Canadian listed company, who have been working on the rare earth process for the last 5 or 6 years. And we have the exclusive license agreement to use that in Australia. And so the plan is we would produce the monazite concentrate, which would then be transported across to that plant, or we could also import from third parties. And so that's the value add, the downstream processing, all the good things that everyone wants to hear and do, and that's all onshore in Australia. And obviously with that, the rare earth cracking dissolution process, the next step is in the separation, which separates out the individual oxides. And then the next step is, is it not working? The magnets. And so when we've been talking to where we want to locate this plant, whether it's in Victoria or South Australia, when we've met with the various departments, they're all very excited about that Medallion monazite process and what that also can bring to the table. So if we go along and set up that shop, then the other ones will come, and then you start creating a hub. And that's the sexy part, is getting to the end and producing those magnets. And that's what everyone's excited about. I guess we're going to hear this a lot over the next 2 days, the rare earth opportunity. Yes, so there's strong growth. We know forecasting to show it's going to double by 2030. The other key one here is to sort of show that at the moment where a lot of this processing occurs. So a lot of the rare earth mining, 60% of it occurs in China. And those following steps, that downstream value add, over 90% of that is currently conducted in China. And so that's the real opportunity, is to then, and Europe and US and everyone's all looking at it, trying to bring this back home to onshore. And I guess the sort of second key point is really the rare earth magnet value, over 85% of it is post-mining activities. So that's the real opportunity. That's why the governments and everyone are excited about this, with the royalties and the ongoing, how that will filter down across the areas. So the ACDC opportunity. So talking a bit more about the actual monazite process. So as I mentioned, we have the exclusive agreement with Medallion, and so that allows us to use that technology in South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Northern Territory. And so this process hasn't just been cooked up in the last few months. Medallion have been working on this in the last 5 or 6 years. They've been working on this with the equivalent of ANSTO in Canada, so the Saskatchewan Research Council. So the flow sheet is technically robust. They've done scoping studies when it was previously been looked at for the US, and so we've just engaged consultants, and we're now looking at localising this into Australia and to update that process. And so essentially what the monazite process is, it's previous technology that was used in the 70s in La Rochelle, France, and then subsequently went to China. And the main difference is now is they've made a more efficient process, so they've gone from a batch operation to a continuous operation. So you get efficiencies in energy, reagent consumption, and also the waste streams are minimised. So yes, you still have waste, but it's more minimised and easier to handle. And also the key one as well, which also sort of helps identify that we don't need to develop both of these projects to make the company successful. They can run independently. So as I mentioned, that the monazite process, the rare earth separation piece, we can import monazite from other mineral sand miners, or we can feedstock our own. And so these two projects can run their own path. It'd be great if they ran together and we were doing all our own, but it also provides a bit of a backstop. So our mineral sands projects. So as I mentioned, we're in the Murray Basin, so that's Western Victoria. So the inland sea, which was I think 50, 60 million years ago. That's where all the minerals were then all separated out. And so we're in a highly productive area of exploration and past mining activities. So you might, I guess, recognise Iluka. So Iluka's mined there in the past. I think operations have, I think 2 or 3 that have previously been operated and closed. There's other peers that are not far from our projects are well advanced with permitting approvals through to the FID times. So, and I guess our projects are sort of right amongst that sweet spot. And so what we've just done in the last 6 months is we've gone along and done discovery drilling across all 3 of these projects. So it's totaled about 12,500 metres. And where we saw some good stuff visually in the pans, the geos got all excited and we did a bit closer infill drilling, and then we went in paddock and did further drilling. And that was the results that we released a couple of weeks ago of that roadside drilling, which was really encouraging, and we saw great numbers. And so Goshen Central is the key project. I'm not sure, yes, those dots, the blue and orange dots is what we released 2 weeks ago, and we saw really high assemblage of THM, so that's the total heavy minerals, and what the real kicker is coming is the white infill holes. So they're at the lab right now, being processed, and we're hoping to get them within the next month or so. And all the holes all around that component have all come back showing very promising numbers. The one yellow dot there in the middle was the mineral assemblage. And so again, it was only on one hole, but we saw great numbers. And so really for these projects, the real ones that you want to look at is the zircon and the monazite. And so we reported a zircon number of around 35%, which is about 50% higher than what we typically see in the Murray Basin region. And similarly with the monazite, came back at 9%, which is about double what we were expecting. So yeah, I do remember picking up the phone and calling our geo and just confirming that I was reading the numbers correctly when I was reading them, before I start telling everyone. And also you can see with the mineralisation there in that graph, it's pretty shallow. Even though that might be low grade initially at the top there, you're still being paid on the way down to the higher grade stuff where you want to be. And so the plan over this next month or 2 is more mineralogy, more QEM scan results will come in, and that'll help fill out our confidence in the project there. Just to sort of quickly cover these other 2 projects, Watcham. So you can see all the little black dots there. So this was CRA back in the 80s and 90s. Did a lot of drilling across these areas. And so previously they were looking for monazite. It was just the heavy mineral sands. And so we've gone back in there. We've replicated some of their holes so that we can sort of validate the data. And then also where we've seen some good stuff, we've gone back and done further drilling as well. So we did about 75 holes. And that again, all that material was off at the lab being processed right now. Similarly with Douglas, another good program down there. So on the rare earth processing, so I mentioned before the exclusive agreement. The other exciting part that we have is when we did the drilling at Goshen, we also collected further material to support the test work development. So not only for collecting for resource development and producing our JORC resource, we got about 2.5–3 tonnes worth of material that we can then send off to the lab to start doing the process validation of the rare earth separation piece. And so that'll sort of, we're looking to kickstart that off towards the end of the year. And yeah, that'll be exciting to be able to get that through the lab and start working towards that. Yep. Work plan, as I just mentioned, we're going through those studies now for both of them. And I guess just to summarise, the corporate team is strong cash balance. We're executing on time and to our plan, and the business model is strong. All right, thank you for your support.